Sometimes there was that quick, that thing was available free. Into.
That's a teaser to get you.
So we need a motion and a second to approve the bills of barrel.
That's just a teaser. Do I move?
Testing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not doing it now, okay.
I think we're okay. Okay. My apologies.
Okay, then. And for his guest updates and presentation.
That works, hopefully. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll work it out.
So,
Okay.
this gentleman is.
Oh, Paul.
Floor is yours, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, East Range Joint Powers Board. My name is Paul Peltier. I'm the Executive Director of RAMS, and Sean Haney asked me to pinch hit this morning. So if, to the extent we can put the ball on a tee, I can hit it out of the park here today for him. So I'm gonna give a brief update. He said that in and out is how we do this, and shorter is better, and so that's what I'll aim for today. There's a lot going on at the Minnesota legislature. There's a lot going on locally here, and I'll try and give you a little bit of an update. And if you've got any questions about anything happening across the region that through my work at RAMS, we can answer or be helpful on, please let me know. There are a couple of bills of interest, and I'm going to do very high level on a couple of these that you might want to pay attention to. The first one is an increase to town aid. Town aid has not gotten any love in a very long time. LGA and CPA have been increased over time, but town aid remains unchanged for a number of years. There's a bill sponsored by Representative Warwis that is going to increase town aid to $2 per resident. It is roughly a $10 million ask across the state of Minnesota and spread out over all these townships. It will equate to roughly a $2 per resident increase. So interested in your thoughts on that? What should RAMS be advocating for? What should the region do? Are you interested in this issue? That kind of thing. Because we know it all plays into the kind of the ecosystem that we have here. Every member of the range delegation across our service area has a bonding proposal in. So every one of them, we're hoping are supportive of a bonding package at the end of the year focused on core infrastructure. We know that water projects especially take an extra lift, so to say, pun intended, with a lift station to get over the finish line. And so if that's something you're interested in, we could pull on those items. But RAMS has a position that we would like to see the Minnesota legislature and the range delegation vote for a bonding package focused on core infrastructure, because we know we can't do it alone. We do it in partnership with others, and those state dollars play a critical role. I believe these communities have experience with the critical role that those bonding dollars play. I know that broadband continues to be an issue. I met with Beatty Township, which is up around Cook, and they recently voted to become members of RAMS because of our advocacy around broadband. And so we're connecting them with Boyce Fort, with Randy Long up there, who are working with CTC. So we're making, what we do is we make a meeting with a local government entity and a company, and any company, it doesn't matter who it is. If they're interested in talking about service to an area, then we'll help make those meetings happen. So if you know of a township, or if it's your township, that would like to talk about service to areas or your members or even your cities, please let me know and we'll try and be helpful that we can. The reason this is important is that there's federal BEAD money, BEAD money, coming to Minnesota in the form of about $652 million. And our goal is for all of that money to make it up north. Sorry, Twin Cities. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody needs internet everywhere. But we know that there's a lot of challenges in greater Minnesota to try and getting affordable, high-speed broadband focused on wireline. Satellite is great until it's not. Wireline stays good for a lot longer, okay? So if you're interested in something like that, let me know.
So those funds are not viewed as in jeopardy? Or not? The federal funds?
Are, as far as the Infrastructure Act funds for BEAD,
Yeah.
we have no indication that they are frozen at the moment. I mean, we don't know, there's a lot of uncertainty at the federal level and it could change day by day or week by week. And so far, the BEAD money hasn't been released, but it hasn't been said that it's not gonna be released. So that's a good thing.
We gotta
We
look
wanna
for
see
open
that.
spigots where we can find them. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if they're a trickle, we'll hopefully put the bucket under there and bring it up here. That's the idea, right? But we have to have willing providers who are willing to eat the low cost option, which is really difficult because who's gonna subsidize the low cost option? That's really for people who can't afford it. That's a tricky one. Anyways, there's also a school district bill called seasonal rec tax base replacement. And in the Mesabi East School District, you have about you have a lot of people who have seasonal properties. And if there was an operating referendum, you would not be able to use the money generated from those seasonal properties that are non-resident homeowners, because that money is not directed to the school district, it's directed to the state business levy. The money still is coming from those properties, but it's going to the state general fund. Even the non-resident homeowners don't pay into the local school district. Their money goes elsewhere. They still pay, but it's not benefiting the local school district. That's viewed by us as fundamentally unfair, that if you're going to have a conversation about raising funds for schools, it should be at least a fair conversation where the locals don't have to foot the whole bill. This helps because the seasonal owners are now paying into the thing. Okay, it's not raising anyone's taxes beyond what is already approved by the voters. That money's still generated. It brings it back home and buys down the cost for the local resident by, in this case, 20% for the Mesabi East School District. So every district's different. Like my home district, Rock Ridge, they're not going to see a lot of benefit from this. It'll only be like 5.8% because they have no seasonal rec. No non-resident seasonal, but around these beautiful parts, it's a large number of people who have seasonal properties. So, yeah. And so it would lower the cost for the local homeowner if those were allowed to pay in. And finally, I would say that housing technical assistance is available through the Northland Foundation now. They released their RFP, which is a request for proposal. They received $1 million 2 years ago. I think it's almost 3 years ago now in a bonding bill. And they have been able to release the requirements for that to deliver technical assistance to regional communities focused on housing. It's going to be targeted technical assistance, and I would encourage you to have a conversation about what that looks like, because this area is known for being small p progressive and looking forward on things that are important to them. Case in point, the water project, housing, other things. You have a city administrator here who's very aggressive and going for projects that make sense. And he's very thoughtful about these things. And so know that there's some compensatory money there for technical assistance should you need it through Northland Foundation, worth making an application for when the
So
RFP
it's
is
the
closed.
upfront planning money.
Could be upfront planning money, or if you need some like a zoning audit, or if you, it's not, do we need a housing study? That's generally not, because we all kind of understand that we need housing in our communities, right? Housing is workforce. You can't chase projects until you chase people. You have a wonderful spec building in the area here, and the first question will always be, well, where will my workforce come from? That will always be the first question. And there's other industrial development in the area, other commercial development that need workers, and they need a place to stay that they can afford. So it's part of that soup of everything, right? That it's all playing together in the same sandbox. So I would encourage you to stay engaged on that issue and work with Sean and Carl and the East Range Joint Powers leadership that you've hired out to do this work, as well as yourselves, to kind of understand what's in front of you. I tried to keep it short. Apologize if I went long. I would offer time for questions if you had any.
I
at the
have a
moment.
couple
Yeah.
questions. Do you have a House bill number for the increasing, the citizen, the first one?
The
$2.
yes, yep. Here, let me get that for you here. Hold on. House File 1996, and there's a Senate cognate to it. And if I I don't know if any of you received the Rams newsletter, but we have an electronic newsletter that we send out. And we have this little stapled packet is all of the bills from the House and Senate from the range delegation, and there's over 200 bills that they're sponsoring between the 7 of them, okay, 6 of them. And we have a link to a tracker on that where like if you click on that link, it'll take you to all of these bills so you can see what your local legislators are working on very quickly. I'd be happy to share that with you and your chair and your group here, and you can stay connected to that. And it'll stay a live link for as long as session's out there. And then when the session resets, then I'll keep collecting those bills and put them into a spot where you can look at them. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in?
I definitely. would like-
Okay, great.
And then how about the seasonal tax?
Yep. Jeff, do you know the number on that one yet?
I don't have that. top of my
Okay,
head.
I'll get it. Hold on 1 second. I got it here.
Because when you call, they always ask you,
Senate file 1197.
1197.
And Senator Housechild is leading on that one. And other members of the range delegation have signed on, and that's a very good sign. So that there's unanimity among the range delegation that this is a thing that they all like, that they want to see funded because they know it impacts the whole region. So I think it's a very good sign that there's both bipartisan and bicameral support on this, both in the House and Senate from Republicans and DFLers. So it's tends to be a win-win for people who understand the inequity. There was a time when, like out in western Minnesota and southern Minnesota, ag communities had a really hard time passing a referendum because farmers could say, I can't afford this. You're taxing my farmland and my homestead. That's a different dynamic than we have here on the northeast part of Minnesota, right? We don't have the same type of ownership dynamic. Well, what the state then did in its infinite wisdom, and truly it was wisdom at the time. I shouldn't say that because that phrase kind of connotes that it was horrible, right?
It happens.
But there was wisdom there. Paul Marquardt, who is from western Minnesota, from ag country, and now he's the commissioner of revenue. He piloted this idea that, well, the state will then buy down the cost of a referendum on the ag land, on the farmland. And so they created compensatory aid for farmland in a referendum that took the burden off of the local farmer and gave them an opportunity to say yes, because then they were just taxed on the home plus 1 acre, rather than on all of their many thousands of farmland acres. Now that wouldn't work the same here because we don't have as much farmland, right? That's a disparity. So this is like our version of ag to school. Like, so how would you have the state buy down the cost so that locals could have a reasonable conversation? That's kind of the goal of that type of thing. So different strokes for different folks. Yeah.
Interesting. It is kind of a regional, though, seasonal recreation
Yeah.
is the north, their third, right?
If you look at Lake Superior School District, which is most of Lake County and a kind of a little belly button chunk of St. Louis County in the middle, it'd be like 38%. It buys down the cost. And for like Ely School District, who has a referendum, it would be an instant tax cut for those already paid. So, because it would bring back that money home.
During the last meeting, Sean had made the comment, he was briefing us on bills that were in the state legislature. And one of them was that they were gonna be adjusting the homestead credit, allowing your child or whatever to homestead your cabin.
Oh, yeah, he's very interested in that component. Yes, yeah.
That person would have to, I guess, if I understood it correctly, was gonna have to physically live in the cabin rather than just have them saying they're homesteading it and not being living in the cabin.
What do you guys think of that proposal?
You know, but a lot of people from the metro area have cabins and stuff up here, you know. And the seasonal rec took a hit, you know, took a hit on the school districts and it took a hit on everybody else, so.
It's an enforcement issue mainly, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know how you'd have to have your mail, you'd have to have one declared address, that kind of a thing. I think you'd have to talk to Sean about his views on that matter and the bill author specifically to what they're thinking on that. But I think the overall vibe on that particular piece of legislation, we don't have a standpoint on it in my organization, but as best I understand it, it's to try and get residents back here. Because residents are jobs and residents are tax base and residents spend money in town and residents buy things around here and they take care of things. And that's the idea, is to have non-vacant properties occupied by people who live and care about here. So I think that's the idea. Sir.
Sean and I had a different perspective on that.
Okay,
Both of us had worked for St. Louis County Assessor's Office.
okay,
Sean was 7 years, I was 22. And when that program was active, it was rife with fraud.
Okay,
And people that lived out of the area were setting their children up as homesteaders on cabins on Vermilion and all over, hunting shacks, you name it. Places that would not support year-round life. And we had a hard time fighting that. Many of them went all the way to tax court, and it was a problematic situation. And one thing a lot of people didn't understand, I'd have comments, well, he's getting a break, let him alone, they're reducing their taxes. The problem with that is when an entity like a town board or city council, or whatever, sets their budgets in the school district also, that money is going to come out of that community, no matter what. And if this guy down the road from you has got his child set up as a homesteader on his cabin, and they're truly not living there, and they're getting a break on their taxes because of that, that money is then paid for by everybody else in that community.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with that program.
does this bill fix that problem, or does it
Not
not?
really.
Okay,
We had it, when I was with the county, we had a hard time leasing it and enforcing it. I know Sean is, I believe, when him and I discussed, his opinions are different. He's got, it was a
Sure.
good thing, and it can be. But who's gonna be the cop? And how are you going to control and patrol that? Where, like I said, it was rife with fraud. There was so much of that.
Yeah.
You know, that was going on with the relative homestead thing. Up to, I have mentioned a few things the last time we talked about it, that some of the worst cases that I saw, but it's out there and it's hard to control.
if this is
So
a,
it's going to set up a lot of unfairness in the system.
yeah, it sounds like it's a tricky situation, and. If this is something you'd like to speak with me more about, I'm happy to listen and understand your perspective, because I bet there's a lot of folks that I also serve that might really appreciate hearing what you have to say about this issue, because it sounds like you've got a lot of experience with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, just to kind of, piggyback on a couple of things Paul said, just about the levy and taxes and seasonal tax-based replacement aid. You know, one of the reasons we're pushing for this is just Northeast Minnesota has a real inequality as far as school-based funding with our levies compared to many other places in the state. And part of the reason is, like, in 2023, when all our property values went way up, you know, we paid more taxes, but the school doesn't necessarily receive more tax dollars because of that. It's just the amount of the levy of where it's getting paid from. So equalization is a state program that was used to provide funding for lower property value districts like ourselves. Just to give you an example, in 2016, the school district had about a $1.2 million levy, and 600,000 of that was paid by local taxpayers. 600,000 of that was paid by equalization, which is the state program that kind of helps property poor districts like ourselves. Well, in FY 26, 10 years later, which would be this upcoming year, we had about $1 million levy, and local taxpayers will pay about 879,000, or 90% of that. So in 10 years, the equalization efforts from the state have gone from about 50% in our area to 10%. So the local taxpayer is paying more, and the state is putting in less to that equalization. So we're getting the same amount of funds. It's just local taxpayers are paying more. So because the equalization formula has been set and consistent as far as what the property values are. So that formula never increases. So each year as property values increase, you know, the taxes increase, but it's just you're paying more and the state's paying less towards the local school. So we're looking at things like the seasonal tax-based replacement aid, because that's 20% of our tax base as a school. 20% of that is seasonal tax rec. So when we look at things like, say, you know, look at upcoming costs for the year, and if we were to look at any sort of things like a referendum, for here, it's really it's a different situation than it is in the metro or in other parts of the state. Because the tax burden upon the local taxpayer is much different in the Northeast compared to every other part of the state. And so when you look at a map of the districts in Minnesota and what districts have operating referendums, all the city schools have operating referendums. Few way up in Northwest, pretty much nobody in Northeast. And part of it is because of the way the tax system is set up, the drop in equalization. And that most of that burden goes on the local taxpayer. And the levels are just completely off compared to other places. So I think I mentioned last time at this meeting, if, you know, we were to pass an operating referendum, the same value as a school district in the metro, you know, our local taxpayers would pay about 2.5 times what somebody from the metro would, because of the way our property tax system is set up. So that's something that we look at every year as a school district, you know, making sure we're keeping things affordable as far as how our levy goes. But as local taxpayers, you're paying more, state's putting in less, we're getting the same amount of dollars moving forward, so. Next thing, I'll just kind of go over one thing that's coming up at the school is that we're gonna start our MCA testing. So our MCA testing is our state test that we do every spring. A lot of different opinions on those tests as we come out. I view them as extremely important. A lot of people look at those tests as we're just measuring the kids individually. But for me, as a district school leader, we really use those MCAs as a guide of how we move forward as a district in our curriculum, our instruction, and our assessment. All right, the MCAs give us a picture of what standards we're hitting for each grade levels and how we need to improve for the future. And so we try to express the importance of those because they are very important for us to be able to analyze what we're doing as a district, what we need to change, and how we need to improve for the future. So there's valuable parts of them. There's parts that I view as not so valuable, but they are a very important tool as a district-wide measure. I don't always agree on how they do those MCA tests, but some of the tools that come out of them is something that we use to help our districts move forward.
Jeff, on the Equalization Act, is there a bill pending that would adjust that? No, okay.
No. It's real expensive to get that fixed.
Yeah.
Like I said, in 2016, the state was putting in just under 500 million. In 2026, they'll put in just under 300. It's about a 200 million drop in the last 10 years.
So it's the wrong financial timing for.
Yep.
So the audience. Who's on the screen?
Miriam usually has.
Miriam's online.
Yeah, Miriam, did you have any?
I just have my little updates. Hi, everybody. So good to see you virtually. I'll actually be in Hoyt Lakes tomorrow. We are going to be doing one of our new and returner Iron Range gatherings. So I think I mentioned this the last meeting that I attended, that we are expanding the language we're using around these, because what we realized is that folks who have moved back don't always identify as a newcomer to the area. And so we're really trying to communicate that, hey, you know, anyone always is welcome, but they're directed towards new Iron Rangers and folks who've moved back to the area and are looking to connect with community. And honestly, I say even longtime residents who are just friendly and they want to connect, come on board. So tomorrow, 2 o'clock at the Hoyt Lakes Library, we're doing an upcycling. And this is where you take old jewelry items in this case, and you make them into something new and better. And I guess we're going to be making necklaces. It's actually a newer Iron Ranger from Virginia who wanted to do these sessions. So we have one tomorrow. Also trying to connect with, maybe I'll send a message to you, Sherry. I need to see if you know how to contact this person, but again, Hoyt Lakes, because that's where the contacts have been coming from, doing a little intro to pickleball kind of event with them for new Iron Ranger gatherings. And so again, always open to anything that would be helpful for the east side of our range. Otherwise, our new website is up and running. I'm still picking through the pages and fixing little blips, but check it out. Same website address, helloironrange.com. And I think that's kind of it for now. Please stay abreast of our calendar. We've got a lot of stuff in the works for planning, and we're trying to get a schedule out for the rest of this calendar year. So always, if you have someone new to the area who just wants to connect, I'm your gal. So keep me in mind.
No, nothing came up the other day that, kind of looking at new homeowners. Some of whom may not have been schooled in, what is involved in home ownership. And I don't know, are there any programs like those that could, for first timers, obviously folks that have had houses before know what's part of the deal, but, and this came up in casual conversation and just put it on the radar screen that, maybe there are, some gaps in the, experiences of home ownership, for some people that are getting into the market, so.
The East Range Joint Power Board years ago, I have a program when Kirk was on the board here in the charter. That they said you had to go through a course before you could get a loan to. The people are asking for a loan to start a business, but you had to go through this course to learn all the problems that you would have and things you have to cover. And it made a lot of difference. A lot of people decided, well, I don't think I want to go into business somewhere myself, once they found out what was involved, so.
I like that premarital, some churches and places will require, right? You go through a series of counseling before you actually get married, right? Same idea as you go through a series of sessions and like, wait, is this really what I want to do? Yeah, I like that idea. I'm gonna write it down.
There is a program for first time home buyers. I don't know if it's AOA or the county, but yeah, if you get first time home buyer credit when you buy a home, but there's a little class you go to first to get that credit.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a program like that out there through the AOA.
Well, that'd be heartening. Some of our blight sites seem to be individuals that dropped in from another planet, but. So.
Think about buying a new home right now, if you bought a new one, it's a massive investment, so. The old $15,000 houses are gone.
Yeah.
Even lots are gone for that price. Okay, staff activity reports, projects update from Norseman, who's gonna?
Sure, that would be me.
That's
Hi,
you.
everybody. I'm Ally Building Camps. I'm a senior consultant with Northspan, and I was parachuted in because Carl and Sean are both gone. Sean is at training in Dallas, and Carl is on vacation in the Virgin Islands. So please give him a lot of, business when he gets back. So I'm going to touch on a few of these things. I am going to have Sean follow up on most of this because he's got most of the good information, but then there's a few things that I do want to discuss quickly here today. Housing Committee. Just a note that meeting has changed to April 1st so that both Carl and Sean can attend that. And I believe the marketing committee meeting has changed as well. And I know information will be coming out for that, but I think that is also on April 1st. The property tax one pager, I believe, will be presented at the April meeting. We don't have that. I know it was just being redone in February, so they'll have that for you in next month's meeting. Thinking about business permitting, Sean is planning to follow up. It sounds like there's a question about whether the chamber would be a good fit for this. And so I believe there's some additional discussion that needs to happen regarding business permitting. The East Range Summit concept, this one, I actually do have information on. I met with Carl and it sounds like planning is going ahead for an East Range Summit to be planned for the end of May or beginning of June, likely to be held in Giants Ridge. Carl's been working with Ben Winchester as a possible keynote speaker, and there'll also be at least 1 or 2 panel discussions during that time. Anticipated attendance is about 50 people. We're looking at elected officials, citizens, economic development folks, really anybody who has an interest in learning more about what's happening on the East Range. There is an existing budget for this. I wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. And wanted me to ask, are there any regional conflicts that you can think of during this time, that would be the end of May or beginning of June, that we should be aware of as we're scheduling? Can anyone think of any festivals or celebrations happening during that time? And graduation, right? That's
pretty much a shoulder season and then.
And another thing he would like some feedback on, would you prefer, we're thinking a 3-hour meeting over the lunch hour or late afternoon through the dinner hour? What are some initial thoughts about preferences for time?
Well, if you want to get community engagement, obviously later in the day is better for people's work schedules.
Sure.
For those retirees, we are much more flexible. Yeah.
Yes. Because we could do an evening, especially that time of year, it's so beautiful in the evening, we could do a dinner type thing too.
Is this strictly informational or is there an outcome looking, type thing?
I think one of the strategic or actions that came out of our most recent strategic plan was to hold an annual regional meeting, and I believe that this is going to take place in, in regards to that action. And so it would be bringing together elected officials, boards, folks from around the area to have some of those conversations in one place. And I think the idea was to do this annually to get everyone together. So be more information on that. It sounds like this concept has been around a little bit, so hopefully we'll continue to talk on that and that time frame will work for everyone. Any other questions on the East Range Summit concept? We're good on that, okay. And then let's see, investing options, Sean is planning to follow up on that. I believe that was something that was on the agenda last week, but one thing I wanted to sort of tee up for Sean and Carl before they meet with you next month is the business retention and expansion visits. These were originally planned for fall of 2025, but North Span has the capacity to get started on them now. And they're in the budget already, and so I think Sean and Carl were thinking that since there's the capacity here, they might want to get started on those. They would target businesses that are doing manufacturing, larger employers, low and fund clients, past clients, and any business looking to expand. They're very open to ideas, so please let Sean and Carl know who they should connect with. And then at the end of doing the VREs, they'll provide a summary report and some additional guidance for those. So any initial thoughts about North Span getting started a little bit earlier rather than waiting till fall? It's in the budget already. It's already been budgeted for.
It'd be good to market to the chambers.
Sure, yeah,
Get direct.
good note. Great.
Hey. East Range Water Project, buddy.
Yeah, well, the water isn't flowing yet, but it's the project's going along well. Let's see, I guess the biggest issue we're dealing with Point Lakes on the plans for the community coming onto that water system, and association with that, we have targeted to basically revise the board to be a 6-member board, which is unusual because it's an even number, but 2 from each of the communities of Point Lakes, Town White, and Aurora, and figuring that would be enough to get us to a point where operations commence, and then probably reduce it down to a 3-member board. And then hopefully a 4th-member board with Biwabic at some point. So anyway, that's been going on, and those talks are encouraging, and really good plans laid out for the phased addressing of various elements to get to the point of Point Lakes being putting together its funding package for the next legislative session, I think, and going on there. We did do a capital lobbying visit and testimony on March 11th before the House capital investment on a $5 million loan that is meant to bridge the funding gap we had when we had to just dive in and do the project, and to reduce the level of indebtedness down to a affordable limit for the communities. And there are two prongs of that. One, either a state bonding allocation directly, or else an increase in the state's water infrastructure funding program that's a grant program, so that communities are generally could get grants up to $10 million, which has been frozen, I think, since the mid 2010s at $5 million. So that's all going on, encouraging. And other than that, budget's on on its timetable. It's on budget, and everything seems to be progressing as well as possible. And then we're also looking at alternative routes for the piping to White Lakes through Aurora.
Talked about that.
Yeah, different ways to go in there. So I think that's all on the water project. Luke, anything that you can think of?
No, that's good.
Oh, good.
Community projects, Aurora, you're back on the.
Yeah, well. Luke and I were commenting this evening, quite a few irons in the fire, yeah. So, but try to be a little brief here. Okay, so first of all, I want to do a plug. We're doing a volunteer recognition event on April 24th, an annual one where we try to both feed and praise our many volunteers that hold the community together. And in connection with that, we'll do and I suppose the other members could do this too, a volunteer a proclamation of Volunteer Recognition Month, which is April nationally, and that'd be good. And we also just authorized a proclamation on Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is in April also. Let's see, we're continuing to deal with franchise agreements and increasing the rates on some of those. And getting the agreements mainly in place, first one being MediaCom, and then we're going to be dealing with Zito, which we find is actually called Pinpoint Media, in case you're dealing with them. Yeah, Zito is not even a trade name, it's kind of a nickname, yeah, so. Let's see, we did do a conveyance of property to AEOA for the first of one of their pilot. They're doing a kind of a house flipping program where they take existing residences and that have good bones and they renovate them. And I think, Luke, what they're doing 4 communities or 4?
Chisholm and Hemming as well.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to follow there as to increasing at least the quality of the housing stock. If not, and then along that line, I think I might have mentioned this before, but we're in line in Aurora for Habitat House. And if people know anybody who would be interested in becoming the owner of one, get out there. Yes, so we're looking at a residential and commercial renovation loan fund, which would be modeled after E-lease. It's still in discussion phases amongst the council and administration, but that's looking at I think in conjunction with the downtown beautification projects that would go along with this County State Aid Highway 100 project. So to kind of pair people that wanted to go further than just beautification and get to the bones of their businesses on that corridor. Our community center is going to be changed in appearance and composition. We awarded a pretty significant contract to Lindsay Construction to redo initially the exterior, and then after the July 3rd events, they work on the interior of that center. That's under a state grant, right? We got $630,000 for doing that project. Let's see, we denied the request for an emotional support chickens in the houses. I thought that would send it, bolster your resources if others are confronted with those. Let's see. I just want to bring up, we're going to do another Snapchat, or snapshot, by the way, publication in April in advance of the volunteer recognition, which we do about every 6 months, which is our local direct to the door through postal mailings, update to the citizens in terms of keeping communication up. So I think that's becoming a valued means of assuring everybody gets a notice on those things. Let's see, we got a CBDG grant, right? Or
Yes.
Do you want to explain that a little, Luke? Or
Yeah, our community drive housing project, we applied for a CDBG grant and we're successful in getting $300,000. So we're waiting to get the environmental review done and SHPO done, and which should have been done last week. And as soon as that's done, we'll award it to Jewel and Sop. They were the low bidder, and that will start up hopefully in May-ish. So we'll have new water and sewer lines to the industrial park. We will upgrade water and sewer lines to 14 existing houses, and we will have 11 water and sewer lines stubbed to new housing for lots.
and that's called the Canuti, right? Canuti Drive project. Yep. And then we also put out, contracted for design services for the CSAH 100 project itself, or it's actually the associated.
There's 12 block, we've got a project, incorporated with the SAW 100 project, which actually now has become larger than their project. We're looking at doing 12 blocks of water, sewer, full road reconstruction. We're sitting on about 70 to 80% grant dollars for that. And that will also include the main water line to Hoyt Lakes, and it's gonna get it south of the track. So we'll actually be on 3rd Avenue by the auto parts store, kind of in that area, between there and the Lutheran church. So when we apply for more state funding to get at the rest of the Hoyt Lakes, we'll just have to go kind of from the Baptist church there down to 110, and we'll be out. So we're gonna get it 3/4 of the way through the town with this project. So very, very sizable, significant. You're looking at $10 to $12 million in infrastructure. And it also includes the fire hall and community center parking lot being fully redone and reconstructed too.
Yeah, well, then, yeah, so that, there are a few things going on. Of interest there, and I'm just gonna toss out, no need for discussion or anything else. I think we ought to look, since we're a coordinated East Range thing, at two possibilities. One, a shared part-time building official for building code enforcement. Two, would be possibly a shared blight officer across the area. We're in the midst of trying to enlist the services of somebody, but it brings to mind that it's a common problem across the area, and most of these are part-time needs, particularly building official. Hopefully it would become busier if we actually got some buildings. But it's nothing that would be appealing necessarily to a full-time building official unless it was spread out over a broader area. So that's the Aurora report.
That is a lot. So it goes to me.
Yep,
Um,
what goes next?
okay, I just wanted to say that I'm sitting in for Mayor Beyondich because he is in the cities with the district, international union reps and staff because of the layoffs at the mines. And then he's also going to be lobbying tomorrow at the Capitol. And then Biwabic City Hall has business spaces for rent. So if anybody's looking for any spaces to rent. Steve and Jeff attended Minnesota League of Cities down the hill. And they were able to meet with some of our local legislators. Rams is hosting the trip to the Capitol. I'm sure you're all aware of that. And
Get on the bus.
get on the bus, yeah.
Go to the Ranger party too. great.
Yes, and the Ranger party after.
No, they don't, the chicken drive.
Biwabic's Truth and Taxation hearing is scheduled for April 8th. And we're also holding a volunteer recognition event during April, and that's sponsored by the Biwabic Area Civic Association. And that's all I have.
Hey, Lakes, David.
Don't have a whole lot, nothing like Doug did anyway. Our new interim administrator is supposed to start today. His name is Steve Weiberg, comes from the private industry, and got a good management background. Overall, that works out very well. Got a bit of news I shared the other night with the council. The St. Louis County Land Department informed me that they are in the process of taking bids for demolition of an old proposed school in town, which will be a good thing. Hopefully get it opened up for housing. I wouldn't hold my breath on it because of the way things are in government right now, but there's a possibility that it may open avenues for some type of housing that the city can purchase some property from the county in whatever way. I don't have much else, Sherry. Got anything to share? I mean, apparently we're just a
Can't
quiet.
think of
little
anything else from our meeting.
Yeah.
We do, I know Doug mentioned, they denied a emotional support chicken. So a surprising ordinance we have is that a resident may have a trained monkey to help them if they are handicapped with household chores. It's on our books. You can have a monkey in White Lakes if you're handicapped and it's trained to do chores. There's a couple
Where do you
stipulations,
get one
but
of those monkeys?
I'm not sure.
Who was the first person to bring that before council and
I
say, you
don't
know what?
know, yeah.
This is a real, it was the Shriners, it was the, I bet it was.
I'm not sure when
They
that
drive
got
the little
added,
cars.
but
No,
it's it's active. It is a real ordinance.
You get that? No sense reinventing the wheel. We could-
Yeah, I'll send you a copy. You can just copy it.
Sherry, can I make, I'd like to challenge this as a resident of Virginia because I believe that having access to affordable eggs is emotional support at this point. Like, and my kids eat a ton of eggs, so like that, it's a twofer.
And then the
You know.
monkey can help you cook them.
Well, I'm less worried about the monkey. I want the chicken. Like, I don't need the eggs right now for our family.
Problems you can have with the keeping of the chicken.
I'm not making any arguments, sir.
Did you ever change that thing? Cause there was a guy that had goats in his house in White Lakes for a long time, years ago.
Wow.
I believe those are gone. I haven't
Yeah,
heard of
you-
any goats lately.
He owned a place out by,
This is the
Stabia,
home of
up there by the mine, and he called his goats into town during the winter time, because he had to take care of them. And the town of White does allow emotional support chickens. I heard they got them in- Where you got them, but we do allow.
Allies at crime.
And we were informed that one lady had emotional support cows.
Oh, no.
Horses and dogs and, you know, but whatever. You know, broadband, we've been waiting on broadband to come in. And broadband's coming into scenic acres now, and when they were doing the water project. The contractor had offered to push another pipe underneath the pond there. A little pond thing there when they were pushing the water line through, so that the broadband cable could have gone through, and MediaCom thought it was too expensive, so they didn't do that. So they rather go that extra 2,400 feet around. The hump to get back down in there to bring it back down in, and I have to think that would have been a push, to tell you the truth, you know, the cost of plowing it in and getting underneath the highways and everything would have been, which compared to what was offered to them by the contractor. We have had our sources of the catastrophes lately in the township. Last year, we got hit by the FEMA grant things with all the big storms and the road washouts and everything. And now this fall or winter, we had a problem in our fire hall with the roof sagging. So we brought in Lakehead contractors to take it, inspect it to figure it out. And we spent about $65,000 to have it, inspected to find out that the purlins in that building are all rotted out in that roof. And they were rotted out primarily because there was a moisture trap in there from the way the insulation was installed and then the metal was put on top of it. Plus, when you go back through it, now we're gonna meet tonight to try to figure out how to handle this thing, but the major beams that are in there are not rated at 50 pounds per square foot of, to hold up the snow load that's required right now. When it was built, it was fine, it was only 30 pounds per square foot. But it's not, so the recommendation is that primarily my understanding of the report. And reading it, my version of it is they said we'd be better off tearing the building out. Completely and starting from scratch and building a new one. So we're gonna address that tonight, kind of see which way we wanna go, but on the same token, we said we gotta get started on appliance or some grants. In the meantime, we stuffed all their equipment into the township garage, which is next door, which we were able to make it fit, but then again, they lost their meeting room space. They lost their office space, they lost all things that they all had over there. The extra things are big, fancy wash machines, things that for washing their turnout gear and stuff. And I don't know how that's gonna work out, but right now the building is considered unsafe. And you know, so they don't want anybody in there. When this big 10 inches of snow was supposedly planned earlier this week, I said, gotta go by, gotta miss, it's gotta. I thought the roof would probably come down. You know, with that type,
Can you use the old county garage at all?
the old one,
Is the old county? garage
Privately
there?
owned, but
privately owned.
Oh, it is?
yeah,
Okay, I didn't realize it was so.
But it's an issue, and the town of White, has a huge area that they cover with fire protection. And they also cover out at the Whiteface area, and, they've been helping out in Calvin Township. Calvin Township only has 2 firefighters. One lives in Hibbing and one lives in Calvin. You know, chances of them coming to your house when your house is on fire is pretty slim. You know, so they've been calling on the town of White, to come over and help them out. If you get over towards Mackinnon, I believe they only have 8 firefighters. You know, and that's another huge area, so everybody's looking for help, but. You know, people aren't volunteering, and even though they're getting paid now, they aren't volunteering to come to it, so it is a problem. We applied for that, grant, that trail grant. We had to have it in by last Wednesday, and Jody was gone. So I asked Mary Ann to come in and do the grant. She applied for a grant to put the trail along, Scenic Acres Road to bring it around to come out, because they want to kind of hook it up into the whole trail system that's around here. You know, and we'll see how that thing goes. There's no guarantees on you're gonna get a grant. And then we had an annual meeting that got a little exciting. We went from 8 residents to 98 residents.
Oh,
And when it was all said and done, the levy was raised significantly after what it was cut 10% last year. But it doesn't do anything till next year, and in the meantime, everything is down strapped, you know. For this whole year while you're trying to plan projects, so we don't have projects like Aurora has to plan out. We don't have, and townships are different, remember, than cities, because townships set the levy at the annual meeting. And if there's 3 or 4 people there, they can set the levy, you know. If there's 100 there, they can set the levy, you know, but it has generated a lot of hate and discontent, you know. But, you know, I guess we'll just deal with it as the thing comes on, but, you know.
They're getting citizen involvement, that's great.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, the involvement, I couldn't believe there was that many people there. I've been on the board for 13 years, and we've never had that many people there in 13 years.
there's no minimum requirement of like X percentage of the population must be in attendance to set the levy, like 2 people could set the whole levy if that's all that showed up. Wow.
It's all by the vote of the people that are at the meeting. You know, and sometimes they bring up other things that they wanna set the salaries of the employees and all that stuff, none of that stuff comes in, or the only thing they got going for them is they can set the levy. And they do that. And then our school had roof problems. We had Kettle and Sons come out from Duluth, they've been repairing it, they inspect it every year, and then we had water leaks, and they're patching it, and the bottom line is, they said, you need a new roof on the building. And the new roof on the building, because of the size of that school, could run anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. You know, and then they already have, the old roof was rubber with that rocks on it, with the tar and the rocks on it. Then they put a rubber roof over the top of that one, and now the whole thing has to be ripped off to replace it, you know, and it's an expensive project, and again, you know, times are tough. You know, so what do you do? Other than that, I don't think I got anything else. Any other business to be brought up on the board?
Not real business, but anybody that's a gambler and wants to have 1 in 60 odds of winning something, you could buy a raffle ticket for the Celebrate Aurora raffle. Yeah, there are only 300 tickets and 5 people win. So
How much are the tickets?
$20 a piece, yeah.
Good sales pitch.
Better odds than at the casino.
There you go.
Next meeting will be Tuesday, April 22nd, 9 AM. City Town Government Center. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. We're over to 10:01.
Do you mind if I get a picture with all you guys together? If I get a picture with you guys?
Sure.
Thanks.
So, and I.